Oh, my touch.
We ready?
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. So as we move to this next part, if you have questions, this is kind of what I look at as far as get your solicitation response ready. You know, the kind of the mechanics of setting up your documents and things like that. So we'll go through a quick proposal development lifecycle chart. Kind of talk about outlining the storyboarding, data calls, and then I have some proposal resource tools at the end. Slide. So this proposal development lifecycle, and I don't know if you've heard the term Shipley, you've heard the company Shipley. They do a lot of proposal management support. They've written thick books, and they have their process is 300 steps or whatever it is. You know, it's a long process. That's not always the best match for small businesses, right? You got to be a little more leaner and get through that process quicker, because you've got not only operations to take care of your customer, you also got to find new business, right? So you need to find the processes that work for your company, your individual company. So you'll get a lot of folks that will, you know, you got to stick with our process, and that's not necessarily the case. You got to do what the best for you want. We'll start with that. But this is the proposal life cycle that I've used throughout my career. So typically, once the proposal drops, whether you start developing your content from a draft solicitation or from the final solicitation, but that's really where you kind of initiate your proposal response. Start initiating that process. And then you move to the collaboration stage. So number 2 there is you're sitting with your capture manager and a proposal team. You discuss strategy, assignments, writing assignments, who's going to wear those hats that we talked about earlier, you know, all those different roles, responsibilities, who's going to be taking on those particular pieces. And then create a schedule. I always work backward from the due date and make sure that you have your reviews built in, development time, recovery, and whatever else you need to do, you know, getting the past performance questionnaire sent out. You know, that needs to be on your schedule when you send it out. When do you want the customer to get those back to contracting officer for that solicitation property? But once they have that internal strategy meeting with the internal team, build a collaboration site, maybe either SharePoint, Google Docs, doesn't matter what you use, but what are you going to, how are you going to coordinate and manage all of those pieces that are coming into that proposal? Some people do email, it's a little cumbersome going through email, but if you have a collaboration site where you can have multiple people and documents at the same time, going through and adding content and doing adding graphics and things like that throughout, makes it a little bit easier. And also you're developing your proposal templates, outlines, any other reference documentation. Like you have to put together a stacking plan, you have to put together a conflict of interest plan, anything like that. We want to talk about that stuff. Then if you have teammates, or even if it's just internal, you're going to do a proposal kickoff with everybody that's involved in and supporting the proposal, HR, contracts, anybody that's going to have any kind of stake in there. You have a security officer, if you have top secret work or secret work, you don't want them involved too, because you don't want them to read the solicitation. Make sure that there's no gotchas, things that you have to watch out for. Then you move to the development stage. And that's when you're putting together all your volumes, your technical management, high performance. Start building all that stuff. Then you have your review stage. Typically, a couple reviews, paint team, red team, a cool team. I'll have a slide on that in a minute. Then you move to your closure. You submit that final proposal. You do, what I do is like a post-mortem proposal team to find out, what went right, what went wrong, that we can improve our process, those types of things. You do, actually, before you submit, I would do a white glove. I would sit down with the executives. We walk through page by page, making sure that they sign off on everything, and then submit that proposal. Kind of walk through these steps. On the proposal initiation, the proposal manager basically assumes control of the process from they take it over to the capture manager, and they're in charge now. The capture manager supports, helps with the solutioning, those types of things, but the proposal manager drives the proposal schedule, making sure all those pieces get incorporated into the response. And some of these bullets are kind of specific to, not specific, but based on some things that I've set up at other companies. During that initiation phase, you kind of do that final bid, no bid. You get that solicitation out, and maybe something that's changed from the draft solicitation to the final solicitation, and there's some requirement that your company can't fulfill. Now you need to figure out, okay, can we still team, or do we ask a question to get that requirement changed? So that's all done during this initiation phase, when you're reviewing the solicitation. Here, the last bullet, you need to have your whole team go through that solicitation, because everybody sees things a little bit differently and has a little bit of different interpretation. So you want to make sure that everybody reads that solicitation, understands the solicitation, and we all have the same take on it, right? If there's some confusion, maybe there's questions that need to get asked the government for clarification. Again, it's important that you get everybody involved to read that solicitation. Any questions on initiation stage? So I typically like to have a internal strategy meeting. That's usually with like the subject matter experts, capture manager, one or two of the executives at the larger firm, kind of going about assigning resources for the response. Who's going to do the proposal management plan? Who's going to do who's going to format the resume for the resume client or the staffing client? Those types of things. So you allocate those resources, and then that gets communicated. For larger proposals, I usually put together a proposal development plan, and it kind of lays down all those pieces, the roles, responsibilities, who's doing what, the timeline, and just kind of walks through it. And that's always available at collaboration sites, so people can open it up, see where they're at. And I usually have a status sheet in there to show where each volume is, as far as it 20% done, is it 30% done? Any things that are holding us up, any problems that we're coming across, things like that. Just capture all that stuff. Yes.
I imagine by now you're using a template. You have
Yes.
developed.
Yes. And there's different ways to do it. Some people like Excel, some people like the Word document, and I've built these proposal development plans in the SharePoint site, so where you can just bring it up and update things. Just depends on how your company functions.
So I'm listening to all of this as a small business company, and it almost seems overwhelming. Is there different levels of proposals where there's certain sizes that would maybe help shrink this down to a more manageable size, or all of the proposals always going to be this big, multiple people wearing many hats are going to have to cover all of these things type of a situation?
Well, it's dependent on your organization, right? So you have all these pieces that need to get done in the proposal. And just like Jake said earlier, if you get to the point where you're getting overwhelmed and you probably get bringing in some outside resources to support. But as a small business, I've written proposals top to bottom, just myself, and doing every role.
That's what I wanted to hear, that there are proposals that's not necessarily managed.
Right. Well, every solicitation is kind of its own beast, right? You get in and you start reading through it. And if you're by yourself and you have to be the subject matter expert, the technical writer, the graphic artist, and all these things, get a 50-page technical volume done in 30 days. Are you gonna be able to handle that with your bandwidth?
Yeah.
So that's where, organizations need to divide and conquer, spread that workload. And a lot of times proposals are kind of an extracurricular activity in your team, right? You've got your day job,
Yeah.
and then you're writing proposals at night, and you're putting in 16, 18-hour days. I've been there. Not fun.
I'm sure like the first one that you put together, is gonna be a lot of work, but do you ever find like after you've done maybe one or two different elements, pieces of art you could pull to make the next several going
Yes.
forward a lot quicker and faster, right?
You start developing your proposal library.
Yeah.
So you have content, boilerplate content that has been well received. So that's where you submit some proposals, you start getting feedback from the customer, you get the debriefs. And they tell you, we really like your management plan. Okay, you're gonna keep that management plan, use it for the next customer, tailor it for that particular opportunity and that customer. So you start building that library.
Yeah. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're not reinventing the
No.
wheel now.
And as folks here, they're gonna start doing 5 to 10 or more proposals a year, you're relying on that content more and more because you're trying to put out more responses. Yeah, question.
Just more of a statement for small business. I would also encourage people to use ChatGPT. I've used AI for a lot of the development too, and it has been very beneficial. Now, technical, not necessarily because you need to edit, but a lot of the boiler template kind of things easily done and saves you a ton of time.
So ChatGPT, I use it a little bit, and it's more of a, when you sit down to start writing a proposal, you have your outline, and you have white space. Sometimes you just don't know where to start. So I use that as kind of some prompts, kind of some ideas flowing, some thinking. But ChatGPT is not going to be your 100% proposal solution. They can help you outline. They can kind of be careful what you ask it and put into it. But you want to make sure whatever you do is tailored to the customer. You want to speak in their language. The Army talks different than the Air Force. The civilian agencies talk different than the military. So you want to use their terminology and not what you're used to using. You're doing an Air Force bid and you're also going to do a Department of Energy bid. It'll be 2 different languages. Any other questions?
Hang on. Joel wants to say something, but hang on a second, Joel.
Hello, folks. Joel Crock here. Can you hear me?
Said he was going to say. I was worried it's going to be really loud.
Testing, testing. 1, 2,
Joel,
3.
Can't hear you, buddy.
All right, I will put it in the chat then. I'll put it in the chat.
Are you muted, Joel?
No, I'm not muted.
Okay.
I will put it in the chat.
Oh, the people on virtual can hear him, but we can't hear him.
So folks online can hear, but then you guys can't hear.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That'll be fun next week then.
Can't hear him. It's not mute, when you inbound, it's not muted, so.
That'll be fun next week. I will put my comment in the chat.
I guess they're.
And actually, for those who can hear me, or,
Joel, I apologize, we can't hear you,
no, that's fine.
but the virtual folks can. This is a mystery to me. I've never been able to, never experienced this before.
I will drop it in the chat.
Okay, cool. Go ahead. He says he's gonna put his comment in the chat. I do have some questions too that never came in. You sparked some, a lot of, but yeah, seems like this second part is getting a lot more questions. You want me to go through them now? Or- Okay.
Is Joel done with the online?
Yeah, he's gonna be writing in the chat.
Okay.
I can share it with everybody too. This is for like the follow-up tomorrow. Somebody saying, will you provide a draft proposal example for everyone to reference your steps?
I wouldn't be tomorrow, because I'd have to take something and sanitize it. Because, I'm not gonna put out customer.
Right, yeah.
Stuff. But I have to, I can probably put together a section, maybe not a whole proposal,
Right.
over the weekend and send that out to folks.
Okay, cool. Right, I'm not sure I understand this next question. I was forwarded the link. How can I register? What, I must have missed maybe, was it like was that linked to something like one of your charts?
No, I'm wondering if they were forwarded the link and couldn't get into the event, right?
Oh, okay. Well, he's on. Yeah. A question. As someone indicated before, for extremely small companies, can you assist with proposal templates?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can help with that.
Yeah,
That's-
okay.
That's what I do.
Okay. Yeah. What is the color code on the reviews section? Pink, red, and gold.
We're gonna get to that. We'll have a slide.
Okay. All right. All right, we're caught up.
And did you want to read what goal?
Uh,
Not done yet.
As a comment, it sounds like it's a story.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
You good?
Yeah, we're good. Next slide. Or you?
So as part of the internal strategy meeting, you finalize that, put a tentative schedule together for presenting during the kickoff meeting with your whole team. So that's designed around, you have multiple teammates that are gonna join you in the kickoff meeting with talk about. Next slide. Couple more slides. Next slide. So the collaboration site, again, that could be Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Google Drive. If your organization uses Teams, it's actually a pretty good way to communicate through the proposal process. So dropping in quick questions, watch the team, get some feedback, and feedback, that type of thing. So I've used Teams quite a bit, but it's usually always built around a SharePoint background or back. But I know some small companies may not have that expense on their books right yet with SharePoint and those type of things. So you can build a site on Google Drive, basically a folder structure, and save your progress there. Let's see. So then, kind of getting back to the shredding. So you go through that solicitation, you break out all those shall statements, you start creating your outline. And then you have your templates for each volume that has your outlines, and that's what you're gonna hand out to the writers. Depending on how your organization works, and if you have a bunch of teammates, I typically will send out just individual sections to the teaming partners. But internal folks, I'll send them the whole outline, so they can see how everything's put together. It depends on how open you are with your teammates. I've worked with larger companies where they only, parse out what they need from their subcontractors and don't give them access to the whole proposal. So you don't get to see the total solution, you just get to see their base. And then data calls. So data calls are, I think I have a. Data calls, if you have teaming partners, I typically send data calls for get the basic company information, like their bios, company cameo, that you can put in a proposal. Sometimes you need like their UEI number, gauge code, things like that, pieces that you're gonna need to insert into various volumes of the proposal. So I usually ask for all that stuff up front, and then there'll be a pricing data call that will go out. You usually have to have pricing from your partners. And then if you ask for resumes, you might have several different data calls that go out. But I try to put as many of them into one document and send it out as possible. That way you don't have a bunch of pieces floating out there. Proposal kickoff meeting is the whole team, internal, external, everybody that's going to be contributing to the proposal. Have a slide deck that I put together that has all the pieces as far as teammate introductions. Sometimes you have teammates that have never worked together. You want to introduce the team, talk about the solicitation requirements, background, any history of that project, contract that's been going on for a while. Talk about the proposal team assignments. So if you're assigning certain sections to a teaming partner or your subject matter experts, you need to have that. Kind of talk about the proposal development process, how you're going to do things as far as long schedule, your reviews, when you have to have questions in, those type of things. Data call instructions kind of usually go over what you're going to be sending out data call wise. And I usually have a tracker to track all that stuff. When you send it, when you ask for it back, when you get it back, that type of thing. Important thing for small businesses, especially if you're working with larger companies, be responsive. They give you a deadline, hit that deadline or come in early, because you want to build that trust and build that that they can rely on you to get your information to them quickly. Don't put things off. That's one of the things I struggle with some companies that have to stay on, get their data calls in. And I know everybody's busy, but trying to win new work. Also in the kickoff meeting, if you don't have like wing themes, discriminators put together ahead of time, in the capture process, you should be capturing those pieces along the way. But when you're sitting in the proposal kickoff meeting, I usually allow some time to kind of go through those and add any additionals that you might want to consider to get into your proposal. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rich, can you expand on maybe examples of win themes that you've seen in the past that work, or discriminators or both?
Yeah, so like win themes are going to be, so you've assembled a team that has specific expertise. You want to highlight that. So the win theme could be, catching on the top of my head. Maybe you're an incumbent team with, you have 100% of the staff already in place, so you're low risk transition, something like that. That's a win theme. It could also be a discriminator, because nobody else is going to really be able to have that. They're not going to be able to have, total project fully staffed with incumbent personnel from day one. Other discriminators could be like your CMMC. That's going to be a hot topic coming up. They finally release that regulation, so you have your cybersecurity requirements as government contractors that you have to fulfill. CMMI, if you're doing development or service work, ISO stuff, those can all be discriminators. If you have, so maybe on your team, if you have like a well-renowned PhD in some field, you know, that's gonna be a discriminator. Your team has them, your other teams don't. Those types of things. And a lot of times those these discriminators come through the customer, right? You're meeting the customer, you're finding out what their hot buttons are, what keeps them up at night. So you want to have your win themes that address those pieces. And highlight our team is able to do this. It's going to alleviate this issue that you have, or this this hot button item that keeps you up at night. Any other questions on kickoff meetings? It's really the collaborative session, the whole team kind of walk through the whole mechanics of the proposal process, what you expect, schedules, writing assignments. And I usually have, what I normally do is I have that slide deck is a kind of a living document. So in the meeting, I'm adding things to it when people bring stuff up. And after the meeting, I send a copy out to everybody that was in the meeting. Next slide.
Okay, Joel's answer or just best I can. As many of you already know, an easier approach as a small business to drive you revenue is to get on some teams, which would require a rate card submission to the prime versus all the effort required to lead the bid. That said, those 5-year prime contracts with Rich walking through the steps today are your ultimate goal as a government contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially what he's saying is, if you're just starting out, instead of trying to take on all those pieces yourself as a prime contractor, you become part of the team, subcontract, and you may contribute to some of the technical, but you're not going to be responsible for writing the whole enchilada, right? Taking care of the whole process, providing rates that you're able to have some profit and build your experience, capabilities. That's why you have a team, right? You build your capabilities and experience. I know, Jake, you want to share some of your experience being a teammate, subcontractor?
Yeah, I mean, really a lot of the time we pursue contracts that we can meet about 60% of the requirement, 70%, and really having that, a team to pull from has been the differentiator for us. And a lot of the contracts we see are very specific on, because we're IT companies, so it's usually operations, sustainment, and then security piece, and then there'll be some weird little functional piece. So you really have to have that good working relationship with other companies to kind of fill that niche area, or you can't fit on it. So that's a no-go in that instance. But just being out, networking with people, how get your name out there and working with people and kind of keep a track of that. So that this company does this, you reach out to the right people.
So when you're looking to go out and partner, go to the networking events, like ASEA, come to the flyers, you do the networking afterwards, industry days, things like that. Interface with folks that are doing work that you want to do, but maybe you can fill a gap that they have on their team that they don't have, right? If it's a large business, large businesses have small business subcontracting that they have to meet. So you want to become friendly with large businesses as well as other small begins. Because you bring stuff to the table that they need, whether it be your designation, but the skills that you have in your expertise area, IT, cybersecurity, well, they need those people. Everybody. I always keep a folder on my computer with all the capabilities, readings that I get. when I go and talk with folks, you know, I meet with lots of companies, large, small, big, I keep all that stuff, because, you know, something will jog in my mind, oh, these guys do that, so I'll go and find them and make a connection, whether it's reconnecting them to another company or connecting them to particular experts that they might want to talk to.
Do you have some more questions? Okay. Are there websites which will provide prior years winning proposals for small business? This will help us write the proposals effectively. We do not have full departments writing proposals. It's very challenging to compete with experienced businesses in this space.
Yeah, so there's tools like a GovWin, which is an expensive tool, but you get that history of contracts for the solicitation. You know, there's been multiples that go out. So I've got some other links. You can do searches on USA spending to find contracts that are awarded. You might not get access to the statements of work or the solicitations unless you can find them in an inactive status. SAM, they were released there, right? So there's a lot of, you have to put your Sherlock Holmes hat on. You do a lot of investigating, a lot of searching. Be comfortable with the internet and go into some of these sites that I'll share later. But that's where you start getting that information, gaining that knowledge of not only individual contracts or what sites can I go to find this.
Next question, what is a good technique for determining and assigning writing assignments when dealing with more than one company, prime/sub?
You want to get those writing assignments to the folks that have the expertise in that particular topic. You know, so if it's a software development piece, you want to hand that section to a company that does software development. If that's not your area of expertise. So you want to find out, so when you're doing this, the teaming process and the capture and all that, you're doing gap analysis. You're sending out either a spreadsheet or maybe a Word document where you have all the requirements for the solicitation. And you ask your teammates, okay, which of these pieces can you do, which can't you do? And what level of experience? So I usually do about 5 levels. So I have contracts with the exact customer doing the exact same thing. So that's like a 5. And then you have like a 4 would be, I do this exact same thing, but with a different customer. They're like a 3. So when you're about handing out writing assignments to teaming partners, you want to give them writing assignments and things that are 4s and 5s. Anybody else?
Whenever you're doing teaming, I know like some of the things you want to have in place is like an NDA or something like that, where you're working together. So that the information you're presenting or putting together, not like taken and used against you or something like that. Is there other things from your experience that you would want to make sure that from a legal standpoint is in place for making sure everything's on the up and up?
So Mandy will talk about NDAs and TAs.
Okay.
But you definitely want to have an NDA in place,
Sure.
non-disclosure agreement in place before you start sharing your proprietary information.
Yeah.
So you would have your protections and you work with, if you're a small business, hopefully you're working with like Billy Grill and his team. And I'm sure they have resources to help you with, you know, crafting an NDA, a proper one to make sure that your proprietary information is protected. And your intellectual property, that type of thing. And then when you're talking TAs, then you're talking about like work share and swim lane, things like that. What pieces of work, but the NDA is what's going to protect your information.
Yeah, I just bring it up in case there might be people in here that weren't aware that of those kind of things you might want to consider. Thank you.
And Mandy, we'll talk about that a little more detail next week. So there's your tease for next week.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Okay, so
We've got some more.
questions.
Yeah. What are some best practices on most effective ways for new contractors to reach out to primes? thoughts on capability statements, cold calling, email introductions? Is there any shared listings of that the primes utilize?
I do it all.
Yeah,
So
that's what I
the best way is getting involved in some networking groups, industry networking groups. You know, join APSIA, if that's within your capabilities. You know, there's other networking groups, like Fast Growth is a group that's government contract focused. Depending on your industry, you have some kind of industry group, you know, like the Builders Association and your construction firm. I'm sure there's a Builders Association, commercial building, anything like that. We'll call. You find the capability that you know this company does what you want, what you need. You find out on their website who their person is in charge of growth, and they'll usually steal you to whoever's leading that opportunity. You know, I've done it all. But the best way is to build relationships, right? You do that through networking.
Yeah, that's what I thought the answer. Like, yes, okay.
I've got a lot of bullets here for proposal development, so, you know, it's really driving to that final solution, your final response. So you're looking at that schedule and you're making sure that your response meets all the requirements that are in that solicitation. So you got your technical writers and SMEs are working together to make sure that your solution is solid, that you can execute it from a management standpoint, and then price it where you're able to work, but also execute the work and not go out of business. Too low. Graphic artists, you know, doing graphics can help with conceptually presenting ideas and cutting down the number of words. You know, when you have a technical response that you have a 50-page limit and you have to respond to 100 requirements, you got to be creative on how you're going to fit all that into that limited amount of space. And in the past, I wrote a 2-page proposal for a $10 million contract. And it was basically 2 tables that laid everything out, submitted that in one. So, I mean, it's crazy, these things we'll see. And especially it gets really exciting at the end of the year with fiscal money, you know, they're trying to get money allocated and you'll see some things you never think you'll see. So these are still kind of this process. The proposal coordinator will work with the proposal manager to make sure timelines are kept. You know, they do a lot of the interfacing with teammates, gathering data calls, asking clarification questions, things like that, and feed that information back to the proposal writers. One of the other best practices I do before we get into the reviews, I got a slide for that. I typically have a status call 2 to 3 times a week, and that's with the whole team. Put up, usually have a little slide deck, have a schedule, make sure you're staying on schedule. If you have any concerns, have those listed out, give people a status of where each volume is in development, you know, percentage. If there's any issues or any things that are hindering progress. And then if there's anything you need to talk about, like resumes, or you need to have a pricing discussion, or just relay information to the team as a whole, if we do those during status calls, and those are built into the schedule. And you always want to have your review scheduled, team, red team, and final review, as I usually call it, a white glove, where you go through page by page, making sure that graphics are still in the right way. And I usually do that. Do a PDF submittal, PDF the document. I don't ever send a Word document unless they specifically ask for it. So the PDF kind of catch your document a little bit. Next slide. Proposal reviews, so this kind of comes from Shipley for the most part. You have your pink team, which is essentially like conceptual bullet points. It's not going to be a full-fledged paragraphs of information. It's going to be thoughts and ideas, potentially graphics. And the pink team review is just to say, okay, do we have the right solution conceptually for this response? Sometimes the PT will have, some sections will have full on content based on some of your boilerplate that you have to put together, right? You can put that stuff in. Might have a PT an 80% management plan, because you're going to use management plan that's been successful on similar projects. It's how to start tailoring it. So your red team is where you're full on paragraphs. You got all the content. You're going through it and making sure that the proposal is compliant, compelling, you're telling a good story, that you address all of the requirements from solicitation. And then typically I have the review team score at the red team, looking at the evaluation criteria. If you were an evaluator, how would you score that section or that volume?
Are you saying you have different teams for each of these colors?
They're not different people necessarily. The key team, they're like an individual meeting type thing.
Right.
But the same people are going to be involved in the different review cycles. So you might have 4 or 5 people in the pink team, those same 4 or 5 people will be in the red team. The green team is usually the pricing folks, and so it's people from the various companies that are making the pricing decisions.
Or would they be rating themselves or rating another group of people?
Well, the reviewers aren't, I try not to have the reviewers be actually writing content.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. So you have different reviewers reviewing the writer's content. So you might have reviewers that wrote sections, but I don't have them review the sections they wrote. That makes sense?
It can get challenging for the teams.
Yeah.
They could get difficult. to work.
Sometimes people get offended or, if emotions come into play, if you really tear apart a technical response and somebody put a lot, they put a lot of work and effort into
That's
it.
what I'm thinking.
But maybe they're off base, right? They didn't address the issues. And you can't take it personally, even though it's hard not to. But you just have to roll up your sleeves and fix it, and you work together to get it done.
Okay.
Does that kind of answer the question?
It does. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking you was talking about. I like that.
So, right, so in some proposals, there's like different requirements, okay?
Yeah.
And think about your team, so like, I might be good at one of those requirements. So I'm gonna be the guy that writes it, okay? You might be good at one of the other requirements, and you write it. And then, when you get all that done, then maybe you have like your senior leaders review that content. Because that senior leader might not know, he's not there to be the expert in like what I'm an expert at. You know what I mean? So he reviews it, approves it, whatever.
I guess that's where it comes in. And so
Yeah.
you just said.
Is that correct in saying that?
Right.
Yeah.
You
okay.
just wrote something.
That's like the pink, so you and I would be on the pink team.
Right.
So we would write the initial responses as best as we could. And then we would work together, and then go to the next phase, the red, the green, the gold, yeah.
But the green team didn't like what we wrote, then
Well, then we
Well,
go
the green
back,
team is really like
Yeah.
twice, so you go
Yeah.
from red team to gold team, I should have flipped those. And a gold team is typically like your executives, they're reading through it. Because who knows the company better than them? And they
I
should
kind
know
of
better.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so they should be able to say, reading through it, they should be able to say, we can't execute that. We can't do it this way, we have to do it this way. That type of thing. And then after each of these reviews, you have recovery time, right? So everybody has, with the virtual world now, I usually have everybody have a copy of the document and then do track changes so they can make comments, do inline edits. And then you take those and I consolidate them into a single document. And then you work through that and address the comments. And if there's something that doesn't make sense, you get on a call with a reviewer. Can you clarify what you're asking here? And maybe if we have to get the reviewer and the writer together, and we do another solution session or come up with a response to that particular comment. So you start adjudicating those comments and cleaning up the documents. So after each of these reviews, there's a recovery period where you're enhancing your response. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then after the gold team, after you make all those edits, after the executives go through it, then you're ready to go to the white glove and ready for submittal. Any questions on?
no. Well, hang on, one just came in. What is your recommendations for completing color team reviews and proposals with quick turnarounds?
That's tough because, I mean, if it's short turnarounds, I'm assuming it's kind of a task order probably, or they just didn't get started late, or started on time. The peak team probably goes away. Probably go right to a red gold team mix, right? And I've done task order responses where you get the response on a Monday, or you get the solicitation on a Monday, you have to respond on Friday. So you're not gonna go through all the reviews, right? A lot of cases, a lot of it's templatized, you're using a lot of your boilerplate content, tailoring it to that particular response. They just have to shorten those times. Right? Yes.
Ready?
Yeah. But once you get through all the development reviews, proposals complete, you do your white glove, again, is making sure you check your PDF. Appreciate it.
Yeah, actually, my question was the same one that was asked online, but I do have another one now.
Yeah.
Do you have you said you're gonna give, I'm sorry, I came in late, so maybe you gave this already. Do you have a best one-stop shop for green team pricing, for doing market analysis on LCATs? Would you recommend that if you're in a hurry like this,
Joel's
scuttle
gonna cover that next week.
next week? Okay.
Yeah, that's Joel's sweet spot.
Do you have one though?
Me personally, no.
Okay.
Most of my career, I've been on getting the technical and management volumes, and other folks have been focused on the pricing volume. I've done a few pricing analysis and things like that. My exposure to the pricing has usually been to go through and make sure all the content is correct, all the dollar figures are right, and then doing QC on it. Right? Not necessarily coming up with the pricing strategy, the pricing and all that. Joel will talk about that next week.
Thank you.
So going back to the completion. So you build your proposal, you do the final document publishing, making sure that graphics fall correctly once you PDF it, that there's no missing punctuation, things like that. You take your time going through that final review. You want to put it in the best product you can for your submission. Depending on your company, either your proposal manager or the contracts manager, corporate growth lead, the owner of the company, they're going to submit the proposal to the government. And then if there's any best and final notices that come back from the government, or there's any issues, you need to make some corrections. Get a chance to update those or answer that, and just do all that and send it back to the government. Always like to do a lessons learned session with the whole team afterwards. You get capture the lessons learned, capture any changes we need to make to the process. What are the highlights, what are the lowlights, where did we struggle, where did we do well, those types of things. That's how you continually evolve your process. It's not going to be what you start with. A 1 or 2 person company is not going to be the same thing. You're a 100 person company. Right? Because you have more resources, more support, more people involved. Once you get awarded that contract, make sure you celebrate it. Right? Recognize team's hard work. And I always ask for a debrief when I'm in our groups, because that's where you get the feedback from the government. You know, even if you win, they're going to tell you some things that you probably enhance. You lose, but then you got a lot of pieces that you know that you need to work on for the next one. Back up, 8 more slide. This is just kind of some quick like, document stuff, things that I do that help me set up the templates and things like that. So I usually start with a blank document, put in all the header stuff, which would be the what volume it is, agency, project name, solicitation number. I have it be set up as styles, my work. So I'll do the section L instructions, section M, evaluation criteria. And then when you get down into like the technical pieces of the PWS pieces. So I build all the templates out like this. There's each section you hand it to the writer. It's all right there for them. They don't have to keep going through the solicitation, turn pages, everything they have the right to is right there in that section. When you're talking about individual task areas, you break it down for those individual task areas. Use call out boxes. So those are the highlight company or team highlights. Any metrics related to that particular requirement. You say it's a staffing plan, you're able to transition and fully staff the project in 20 days when it calls for a 60-day transition. So that would be something you probably want to call out box where you've done it before. You have experience doing that. Also put in like customer kudos, things like that into those call out boxes. When you're doing customer kudos, don't put the customer name, actual, you know, if it's a contract, or don't use their name, use their position and agency. That's just one of my best practices that I use. That way it doesn't come back and bite you, I guess. But you got an email that shows it that you know, they said this about your performance on a project. That's valuable information. You want to share that. Next slide. So these boxes here, I usually use hidden text. But when I do that, go to the next slide. You follow the paragraph thing there. It takes away that hidden text, so it helps you keep track of your page count. So you turn it off and on, so you can see where you're at page count wise. It's always easier to when I lay these out, I usually say, okay, the introduction is a half page. Section L or section 1 here is gonna be 2 pages. I give some guidance to the writers. So that way you're trying to hit that page count. And a lot of times you get technical writers or people that aren't technical writers, but you get subject matter experts. They want to put everything they know in that section. And you go from a 2-page section to a 10-page section. And you're not going to be able to get all the other content into the needs. You got to figure out how to pare that down. That's just one of the tricks I kind of do to help me track the page count. Thanks, bud. Storyboard sessions. Is everybody familiar with what storyboarding is? So they do storyboarding, television, movies, comics, cartoons, all that. You storyboard each graphic. I usually have a template that works for me. If I've got multiple graphic artists working on things, I'll just parse these templates out with a hand-drawn sketch or maybe boxes and circles in there, and then send to graphic artists. And they're able to come up with a consistent look and feel that's going to be used throughout the proposal. So all the graphics look uniform. You don't have graphics that are purple, orange, and blue on one screen and red, black, and different color. You know, you want some uniform look and feel. And you can schedule whole sessions just to do graphics, storyboarding. Comes in handy when you're doing an overall like concept of operations graphic at the beginning of technical solution. And then you can refer back to that first graphic throughout the proposal or pull pieces from that graphic into that section. Data calls earlier. So this is the types of information that I send out and ask for when I send out a data call, and all that corporate information, UEI, page code, logos, company cameo. Send that gap analysis. I usually have that embedded in that data call. I usually set it up as a one document, Word document, all these different sections. And that gap analysis, the any technical management or past performance write-ups, the proof points for those particular capabilities that they say there are 4 or 5 in. So you want to get those nuggets that you can interject by your proposal. You're asking for resumes, that in there. And then pricing is usually a separate data call because you usually have different people working on pricing. With larger organizations, smaller companies, probably doing everything pricing. But it's usually a separate data call. If you're partnered with somebody, whoever's leading the pricing is probably not going to be the person that's going to be involved in the other pricing. So, is there any questions on data calls? So telling your story, you need to be compelling, but you also need to be compliant. Make sure you capture all those the contractor shall statements and that solicitation. You have to address all of those. Your solution needs to be customer and solution focused, not my company focused. I've worked with a lot of companies that you go through the proposal. One of the things I do is I do a search, find a replace, put in the company name, take that tally, then I do it again with the customer. If they're naming the company more than they're naming the customer, kind of need to rework it, right? You need to make the customer focused, not focused on the company. If that makes sense. Ghosting. Everybody heard the term ghosting? What that is you know what your competition is going to propose. Your solution is different, but you feel that your solution is superior to the solution they're gonna propose. You don't name the customer or the other company by name, but you say, you're gonna probably see this particular solution. This is why our solution is better than that solution. That's how you close. You don't wanna throw your competition over the bus, because they might be your competition today, it might be a teammate tomorrow. You don't wanna burn any bridges.
Get a question in?
But next,
On that last slide, when you're talking about the customer and being customer solution focused, you're still going to add your capability statement to the end. So, because that's when you're talking about your.
well,
Yeah.
not your capability statement.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're doing an RFI, they may ask for a capability statement. But like an RFI response, they want to know like your experience and things like that, where you're gonna be talking about yourself. But in like the RFP response, where you're submitting that bid, you're gonna have yourself in there. But you want to highlight your experience, you know, where you've done it before, but you want to make the story around the customer or the solution, not about we're the experts, you should need to do it this way because you say so. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As far as ghosting, I've seen it like you said, playing to your strengths and how your solution is superior and why they should consider that one. You're also maybe looking at if you have a weakness or you're lacking something, not necessarily trying to mislead the government or anything like that. You probably want to say or speak to whether or not is this really, you know, important that you have this certification? Is that required? Maybe you don't, or maybe you do, and say, hey, if I do have it, then I want to, you know, tell you why that's important to have it. But if I don't have it, you know, to kind of like level out the playing field. I guess.
So where that comes into play is like your ISOs, your CMMI certifications. Now, you may not have the budget to spend the money to go get those, but you're following those processes, right?
Right.
You can say, we follow ISO 9000, whatever processes, or CMMI level 3 development. We follow those processes. And just kind of leave it at that. Right. You don't have to say we're certified, but we follow those processes. Right. And I was with a company where they didn't have CMMI, but they helped the government get CMMI level 5. Army project. So in proposals, we can help your organization attain this level of certification. Yeah, it's all how you word things.
Right. Yeah, you're not trying to mislead or doing anything nefarious, but just trying to position yourself when that RFP does drop, that you have a stronger possibility of being in the top tier of competing.
Now, but if the solicitation says you have to be CMMI level 5, you have to be ISO, and you're not.
Right.
You know, they typically will ask for a copy of those certifications or the link. Sometimes they're online. Right. So, I mean, if they call for it, you don't have it, well, then don't submit the bid. Right. Then you won't win. So these are some links that I have, and you'll get this when you get to slide decks. Some good resources. There's Association of Proposal Management Professionals. They have a great site. They've got a lot of ties to Shipley processes, things like that. But they do regional and local events. So if you want to learn more about proposal, if you want to do some networking with other proposal people, great place. There's also several LinkedIn proposal management groups. You're doing a lot of proposals or you got questions. And a lot of them, you got participation from folks all over the world, right? So you put out a question, you'll get responses you wouldn't expect from folks in India or South Africa, or things like that. It's pretty cool. Kind of see how other people interpret things. you don't have a graphic artist, let's say, take my graphics I've used in the past, where you can create graphics. They have lots of templates for PowerPoint, different, and they have hundreds of different templates for whatever you're trying to portray in graphics. Physical thread is one that will do that RFP shredding, taking all those job statements, and help you there. I've never used them, but I've seen a couple demos. Again, ChatGPT, use that as kind of a page starter. Get some ideas flowing. If you want some good reads on protests and think what not to do, go to the GAO office. I learned a lot just by going and reading through protest documents. One company's protest and what they were protesting, and a lot of times it's just like, why did you protest that? GSA library, I go there to do research on competition. Because if they have a GSA schedule, you can go look at their schedule on GSA library, see what their public rates are, see what labor categories are using, things like that. USA spending, you go in and search individual contracts. So if you have a contract number, you can search. If you search on prime contractors, see what awards they have, individual companies. You can search on agencies. And same thing with that PDS. They're kind of tied together. You get some additional information on that PDS. Apex accelerators, if you're not using your Apex accelerators, tap into those resources. They're there to help small business. And if you're looking for networking events, gov events, they put a lot of commercial and government hosted events, industry days, things like that. Almost done. So these are just some of my takeaways. Always follow the instructions. The government's asked for things to be a certain way because they're going to evaluate it a certain way. So follow those instructions, make it easier on your evaluators. If they have to go through your proposal and search for pieces that they've asked for, you're going to make it difficult on them. Always quality check your final submittals. Virus scan them. Make sure that they open up. I attach them to my email and then I open them from the email before I send it. Make sure they're open. Do that after action, postmortem, lessons learned with the team. You can always ask for that debrief from the government so you can learn what can I improve. Proposals can be stressful. Take a break. If you're getting haggard, step away for an hour. I probably stole this thing on the bottom from somebody, but proposals in my mind are never finished, they're just due. You know, you do the best you can in the time you have. I'll pull down a proposal that I worked on 2 years ago and start reading through it. There's the punctuation here. You know, it's just little things. So yeah, it's always you do the best you can with the resources you have. That's kind of the bottom line there. Any questions?
Quick question. I've seen requests for proposal want you to address risks specifically. And I've heard different approaches to doing that. So you can just put really vanilla risks in that you can mitigate very easily, or you can go deep into your technical approach, identify risk, when you talk about that, give the recommendations for how those risks come across to the government, how they're looked at, how you should approach writing them.
My approach to risk, if you have the space, is you put the you've met with your customer and you know what their they're gonna be risk averse. But you find out the risks that are most on their mind, most that keep them up at night. You address those, make sure you have a good mitigation plan for those risks. If it's, there's always risks with staffing, being able to fully staff, or being able to X, Y, Z. You can have a good mitigation plan. And then always have in there, continually evaluate risks. So, throughout the whole process, and then you discuss it, and then you mitigate them throughout the life of the contract. So when you're writing to them, it just depends on, how much room you have. We're gonna pull right now. You have to describe and mitigate the risks, but it's only an 8-page response. So I mean, how many risks can you really address? That's all the other requirements. So you have to, and a lot of times they'll do that at the table that you get a little bit smaller font. A bit more. That help?
Yeah, it's always a challenge figuring out how detailed to be, highlighting your own risks, right, the challenges you have.
But you have to be honest too, right? I mean, if you're just throwing in, like you say, vanilla risk, is that really a risk in the government side? I appreciate everybody coming out and listening to what I had to say. Hopefully it helps you as you progress in your businesses and growing. If you have any questions, always feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. Definitely love to talk to you. Any other questions online? No. I guess I finished up.
A little early, yeah.
I'm happy.
Don't forget, next week is part 2. You get Andy and Wolf. Covers a lot of good stuff.
And I'll be, if you're gonna be in person, fantastic. If you're gonna switch to virtual, that's fine, but I will be sending out the virtual link, probably on Tuesday. If you're gonna participate in the networking. 20 minutes.
I'd stop that. Just like, I saw.